The shuttle fell from the sky like a broken bird. Its metal wings were torn, its engines silent. Ryan held the controls tightly, but nothing answered his hands. The desert world below grew larger and larger until the crash came. The ship slid across sand and rock, throwing up clouds of dust. The sound of tearing metal filled the air. Then silence. Ryan coughed and pushed himself out of the chair. His arms shook, and his forehead carried a thin cut, but he was alive. He looked around the ruined cabin. The walls were bent, the screens broken, and the last light of the shuttle flickered. He stepped outside. The air was hot and dry. The sky carried two suns, one pale and one deep gold. Waves of heat rolled across the desert floor. In the distance stood strange towers. They rose like teeth from the sand, shining under the suns. Ryan's lips were already dry. He opened his pack and counted what he had. One half-filled water flask, a small toolkit, and a beacon that was too weak to reach deep space. If no ship passed nearby, he was alone. He tried to stay calm. First survive, he whispered to himself. Then look for a way out. The desert stretched wide. Sharp rocks cut the land in places, and dark shapes moved far away, too small to see clearly. He decided to head toward the towers. If they were built by hands, then life was near. The walk was hard. Sand stuck in his boots. The heat pressed on his skin like fire. He drank one careful sip of water but closed the flask quickly. Every drop mattered. Hours passed. The towers grew larger. They were not smooth stone but made of a strange silver metal that shone as if it held light inside. Around their bases were broken walls and old paths, half buried in sand. When Ryan reached the first tower, he touched its surface. It was cool, not hot like the desert around it. Strange lines ran across the metal, like veins. He wondered if they once carried power or water. He sat in the shade, breathing slowly. He felt weak already. Without more water, he would not last long. Then he heard it. A sound behind him. Soft, heavy steps pressing into sand. He froze. His hand reached for a broken piece of metal he carried from the shuttle, the only weapon he had. The steps grew closer. He turned. A tall figure stood there. At first he thought it was a machine. Silver plates covered its body from head to foot. The plates gleamed with drops of water that ran down their surface and fell into the sand. The figure's eyes glowed faintly blue behind a visor. Ryan held the metal bar tightly. The figure raised one hand, slow and calm, as if saying it meant no harm. Then, in a rough voice, the figure spoke in broken human words. "It's heavy with water." Ryan blinked. He was not sure if he heard right. "What?" he asked. The figure tapped the chest plate. Water dripped faster, running in streams down its sides. The air around it felt cooler, fresher. Ryan realized the armor itself was carrying water. For a moment, hope filled him. If there was water here, he could live. But another thought followed. Why was this stranger telling him such a secret? Was it a warning, or a test? He stayed quiet. His throat ached with thirst, but he did not move closer. The figure tilted its head as if studying him. Then it pointed at the sky where his shuttle had fallen. "You, alone?" it asked, the words slow and careful. "Yes," Ryan said. His voice cracked. "I'm alone." The figure lowered its hand and looked at the broken towers around them. For a long moment, it said nothing. Then it turned and began to walk toward a dark opening at the base of one tower. After a few steps, it looked back at him and waited. Ryan hesitated. He could run into the desert, but he would not last long. Or he could follow this strange being deeper into the ruins. His choice was clear. He stepped forward. The figure led him into the shadow of the tower. Inside, the air grew cooler. The walls were made of the same silver metal, marked with symbols he could not read. Water dripped from the ceiling in tiny drops, shining in the dim light. The figure stopped at a wide hall where broken machines lay silent. It turned to him again and lifted its hands to its helmet. With a slow motion, it removed the top plate. Ryan saw a face beneath. The skin was pale gray with a faint shine, the eyes wide and bright. The figure was a woman, though her features were not human. Her hair was short and dark, tied close to her head. Her voice was clearer now, though still strange. "I am Oren," she said. "You, human." Ryan nodded slowly. "Ryan." She studied him as if measuring his strength. Then she pointed to his flask. "Water, little." "Yes," he admitted. She touched her chest plate again. More drops fell. "Heavy with water," she repeated. Ryan felt his throat burn. He wanted to ask for it, but he stopped himself. She had shown him her strength and weakness both. If he begged too quickly, she might see him as only a thief. Instead, he asked, "Why tell me?" Her eyes met his, calm and steady. "Trust," she said simply. The word echoed in his mind. Trust. On a dead world, with no help, trust was both a gift and a danger. Ryan sat down on a broken stone, still watching her carefully. The desert outside waited, hot and empty, but here in the ruins, a new path was opening. He had met a stranger who carried water in her armor and spoke of trust. Whether it would save him or end him, he did not yet know. But he knew the story of survival had only begun. The hall inside the tower was wide and silent. Old machines stood in the corners like sleeping giants, their surfaces coated in dust. Faint lines of light ran across the walls, glowing weakly, as if the structure still remembered a time when it was alive. Ryan stayed near the doorway, his back close to the wall. He kept his eyes on the tall woman before him. Oren's armor dripped with steady rhythm, each drop falling to the floor and vanishing in the sand. Every sound of water was sharp to his ears. His throat begged for it, but his mind forced him to stay calm. Oren moved slowly, removing one of the shoulder plates of her armor. She placed it on the ground with a dull sound. From inside the plate, tiny streams of water escaped and spread into the dust. She touched the flowing line with her hand, then looked at Ryan. "It is life," she said. Her words were broken but clear enough. "Without, no breath. No walk. No fight." Ryan nodded. He understood. Water was the blood of this place, maybe of her people too. He asked carefully, "Why do you wear it?" She tapped the armor across her chest. "This keeps water safe. Armor heavy with water. My kind cannot live long without." Her voice had a tired edge, as if speaking his language required effort. She sat down on a low stone, the armor clinking as she rested. Ryan studied her. The armor was unlike anything he had seen. Not just a container but a living suit that cooled the air around her. He wondered if the silver metal itself was alive. She broke the silence again. "You fell. From sky." She pointed upward. "Your craft broken." "Yes," Ryan said softly. It crashed in the desert. I survived, but my beacon cannot call far. I have only a little water. Her eyes narrowed as if weighing his truth. She nodded once, slow and heavy. Desert takes fast. You would be gone in 3 days. The blunt words chilled him. 3 days. He already felt the weakness creeping into his body. He asked the question burning in his chest. Why show me this? Why show me your water? For a long time, she said nothing. The hall was silent except for the dripping sound of her armor. Finally she spoke. Because I test you. Human alone, can be danger. Can be thief. Can be, friend. I do not know. Ryan tightened his grip on the metal bar he still carried. She had seen his need, his thirst, and she was testing if he would act with greed or patience. He lowered the bar and placed it on the ground. I am not a thief, he said firmly. Her gaze stayed on him, calm and searching. Then, very slowly, she lifted one of her gauntlets and removed it. Without the metal glove, her hand was visible. The skin was pale and faintly lined, like stone washed by rain. She stretched the hand toward him. Ryan hesitated. If this was a sign of trust, he had to answer. He stepped closer and touched her hand with his own. Her skin was cool, a strange relief against the burning heat of his palm. You trust me, he whispered. Not yet, she corrected, her voice sharp but not cruel. But maybe. Ryan pulled his hand back, unsure if he had passed or failed her test. Oren leaned against the wall, her breath slow and heavy. She looked weaker now, as if even her armor's water was not enough. My people, far. Hiding. Enemy hunts us. Enemy takes water. Enemy takes worlds. Ryan frowned. He had heard many stories of wars between distant races, but this was the first time he stood face to face with one who lived through it. He asked, You are alone here? Her eyes lowered. I am last of my unit. Others gone. The words carried weight. She did not explain how they were gone, but Ryan could guess. Desert, war, or both. Silence stretched between them. Ryan's body begged for water, but he forced himself not to ask. He thought if he showed patience, she might decide to share without demand. Finally, Oren lifted her other gauntlet and removed it. She set it on the ground and reached into a small slot inside the chest plate of her armor. From it, she pulled a tiny container, clear as glass. Inside was pure water. She placed it carefully on the stone between them. The light caught the liquid and made it shine like treasure. Ryan's heart raced. His hand shook as he reached for it, but he stopped halfway. He looked at her first. Oren gave a single nod. Only then did he take the container and drink. The water was cool and clean, sliding down his throat like life itself. He closed his eyes and let out a slow breath. For the first time since the crash, he felt hope. Thank you, he said quietly. Oren watched him, her face unreadable. Human drinks slow. Not greedy. That is good. Ryan placed the container back on the stone. A few drops remained, but he left them. She noticed this and tilted her head. You leave some. Why? He answered simply. Because it is yours. You shared. I should not take all. For the first time, a faint curve touched her lips, not quite a smile but close. The distant sound of the desert wind echoed through the tower's hollow walls. For a while, neither of them spoke. They sat together in the half-light, two survivors bound by need and trust that was not yet complete. At last, Oren rose again. She lifted her armor pieces, fitting the gauntlets back in place. The sound of locks clicked softly. She looked at Ryan with steady eyes. You live because I choose. But you live also because you wait. Remember that. Ryan nodded. He understood. In this desert world, patience was as strong as water. Outside, the suns began to sink, painting the sky with deep red and gold. Night would soon come, and with it, unknown dangers. Oren motioned toward the deeper halls of the tower. Come. Safer inside. Not safe outside when dark comes. Ryan followed her, his mind still turning. He had found water, but he had also found something more, an ally, maybe even a path to survive beyond 3 days. The test was not over. It had only just begun. The night fell over the desert with sudden weight. The heat of the day slipped away, replaced by sharp cold. The twin suns sank beyond the horizon, and the land turned silver under strange stars. Ryan followed Oren deeper into the tower. His boots crunched on the sand that had blown inside over long years. The air grew cooler as they walked, carrying the faint smell of old stone and metal. Oren moved with slow steps, her armor making soft echoes in the empty hall. She carried herself like a soldier, careful and alert. Every few steps, she paused to listen. Ryan noticed the tension in her shoulders, as if she expected trouble even here. At last they reached a wide chamber. Its roof had holes that showed pieces of the night sky. Broken machines lay scattered, their shapes unfamiliar to Ryan. In the center stood a cracked pillar with glowing lines that still pulsed faintly, as though the tower's heart refused to die. Oren lowered her pack beside the wall and sat down. Here we wait, she said. Ryan lowered himself across from her. His body ached from the long walk, and his throat was still dry even after the drink she had given him. He leaned against the wall, looking at her armor that shimmered with tiny drops. He wondered again how much water she carried inside, and if it was enough for both of them. Silence stretched between them until Ryan broke it. You said enemy hunts your people. Who are they? Oren's face grew hard. They are called the Vayan. They take worlds, strip them, drink them dry. They came here for water. My unit fought, but we were few. Now I am last. Her words carried both pain and anger. Ryan felt the weight of them. He thought about his own crash. If the Vayan were near, maybe his beacon had already drawn their attention. He asked softly, do they know you are here? Oren's eyes flicked toward the doorway. Not yet. But they hunt always. Their machines search the sky. They follow heat, they follow water. If they smell it, they come. A chill passed through Ryan. He imagined metal creatures sweeping over the desert, seeking drops of water like hunters after blood. Oren leaned back, her voice low. That is why trust matters. Alone, I fall. With another, maybe I stand. Ryan nodded. He felt the truth of her words. Alone, his life would end in days. Together, they might hold a chance. But a question burned in him. Why not leave? Why stay here? Her eyes grew distant. Because this tower holds memory. My people built it long ago. Water flows deep under it, hidden. If Vayan find it, all is lost. I guard it. Even if I am last. Ryan looked at the cracked pillar in the middle of the chamber. If what she said was true, then the tower was more than ruins. It was a shield over hidden life. His thoughts were broken by a sharp sound outside. A metallic crack, faint but clear. Oren was on her feet at once, her armor shifting as she moved. She raised a hand to silence Ryan. Both listened. The sound came again. A scraping, then a low hum that vibrated the air. Oren's voice was barely above a whisper. Scout machine. Ryan's chest tightened. Vayan. She nodded. Her eyes were sharp, filled with battle fire. They search. If they find us, more will come. She moved toward the doorway, her steps silent. Ryan followed close, his heart pounding. He still carried the broken bar from his shuttle, though he knew it was little against machines. They reached the edge of the hall and looked out into the open ruins. The desert wind carried sand through the broken walls. In the distance, a small shape floated above the ground. Its body glowed with faint red light, and its movements were smooth and cold. The scout drone. Ryan felt his throat tighten. If the drone saw them, the Vayan would descend. His crash site would surely be marked already. He whispered, "What do we do?" Oren's hand brushed the side of her armor. She pulled free a long staff of silver metal, its end sharp like a spear. "We stop it." "Quiet. Fast." She stepped forward, but Ryan caught her arm. "Wait. If it sends a signal before you strike, they will know." She paused. Her eyes met his. She understood his fear. "You have plan." Ryan looked around quickly. The broken machines, the sand, the cracked walls. His mind searched for answers. Then he saw the glowing pillar. Faint sparks flickered along its surface, a ghost of old power. "Yes," he said. "Maybe." He ran back to the pillar and pulled open his toolkit. Wires spilled out, twisted and thin. He pressed them to the glowing lines. The pillar hummed faintly under his hands. Sparks danced. Oren watched with tense eyes. "What do you do?" Ryan answered without looking up. "If I can make it flare, it may blind the drone's sensors. Give you a chance to strike before it signals." He twisted wires, his fingers shaking. The pillar's hum grew louder. The old machine woke like a beast disturbed in its sleep. The drone drifted closer, its red eye sweeping the ruins. "Now," Ryan hissed. The pillar burst with sudden light, bright and wild. The chamber glowed with white fire. The drone spun, its sensors blinded for a moment. Oren moved like lightning. She leapt from the shadows, her spear flashing. With a sharp strike, she pierced the drone's eye. The machine sparked and fell to the sand, twitching until it lay still. Silence followed. Only the wind moved again. Ryan sagged against the pillar, his breath heavy. Oren pulled her spear free and stepped back to him. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried respect. "You think fast," she said. "Without, I may have failed. You, different from others I met." Ryan gave a tired smile. "Humans are good at fixing broken things. Sometimes even in the middle of danger." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Maybe you are more than survivor." The broken drone lay in the sand, smoke rising from its body. Ryan knew this was only the beginning. If one scout was near, more would come. The desert was no longer silent. The hunt had begun. The broken drone still lay in the sand, its glowing eye now dark. Smoke rose in thin lines and drifted into the night air. The desert was quiet again, but the quiet felt heavy, like a warning. Ryan stood near the cracked pillar, his chest still rising fast from the rush of danger. He glanced at Oren. She stood tall, her spear in hand, her armor wet with beads of water. But even from a distance, he saw the way her shoulders sagged. "You are hurt," he said. She shook her head. "Not hurt. Just strain." Her voice was calm, but her movements betrayed her. Each step she took seemed heavier than the last. The armor that had once moved with smooth grace now dragged against her frame. The drops that fell from its surface had grown slower, fewer. Ryan frowned. "The armor. It is failing." Oren touched the chest plate with one hand, her face set. "It cracks. Holds less. Soon, too heavy for too little." Her words chilled him. The suit that carried her life was breaking. Without it, she would dry under the desert's harsh breath. She tried to take another step but stumbled. The spear fell from her hand, clattering on the stone floor. Ryan rushed forward and caught her before she collapsed fully. Her body felt cold, not warm as he expected. "Sit," he said firmly, guiding her back against the wall. She resisted for a moment, then allowed him to lower her down. The hall was quiet except for her rough breathing. Her eyes closed, her chest rising and falling with effort. Then, with slow and deliberate movements, she began to release the locks on her armor. One by one, the silver plates shifted and fell away. The chest plate dropped with a dull sound. The shoulder guards followed. The water that had been locked inside spilled out in streams, soaking the sand beneath them. Ryan's breath caught. She was laying herself bare, exposing the weakness she had tried to hide. Without the armor, her body looked fragile under the harsh light of the stars. Her skin was pale gray, smooth, and lined with faint patterns that shone faintly like stone touched by moonlight. He looked at her face, but her eyes remained closed, as if she could not bear to see his reaction. The last plate slid away until all that remained was the undersuit of thin fabric, damp with water. Around her, puddles shimmered in the dim glow. She whispered weakly, "I cannot carry it longer. It takes too much." Heavy with water, but breaking. Ryan knelt beside her. His mind spun. If the armor could no longer protect her, she was vulnerable. Without water, her life would fade. He felt the weight of her trust pressing on him. She had given him the chance to take advantage, but he would not. He reached for his toolkit. "I can try to fix it," he said. Her eyes opened, weak but steady. "You would?" "Yes," he said simply. "You saved me. Now I save you." He set the broken pieces before him, studying the cracks where the metal no longer held. The design was strange, beyond his full understanding, but he saw where joints were loose, where seals had thinned. With wires and fragments from his pack, he began to work. Oren watched him silently. At first her gaze was sharp, as if waiting for betrayal. But as his hands moved carefully, tightening and sealing, her expression softened. Hours passed. The night deepened. The stars wheeled overhead. Ryan's fingers grew sore, but he did not stop. At last he pressed the final plate together, securing it with a strip of metal from his own shuttle. He wiped sweat from his brow and looked at her. "Try it now." She hesitated, then lifted one plate and fixed it back onto her arm. The seal held. Water beaded across the surface once more, slow but steady. She moved another piece, then another, until the chest plate returned to place. The armor shone faintly again, not whole but strong enough to hold. Her eyes widened slightly. You did this, with so little. Ryan shrugged. Humans always work with little. We survive by turning broken things into tools. Her lips curved faintly. It was not a full smile, but it carried warmth. Then maybe we are not so different. She sat straighter, her breath stronger now. The armor no longer dragged on her frame. The drops fell steady once more, each one a sign of life. Ryan leaned back against the wall, exhausted but relieved. You will be safe now. For a time at least. Her eyes lingered on him. You could have left me. Armor broken, water spilling. Easy to take. Easy to run. But you did not. He met her gaze without hesitation. Because trust matters. You said that to me first. For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. Not the silence of danger, but the silence of two souls sharing a truth. Outside, the desert wind rose again, whistling through the ruins. Ryan knew more scouts would come. The Vayan would not stop. This fight was only beginning. But now, as he looked at Oren sitting stronger once more, he felt a new certainty. He was no longer just a survivor. He was part of something larger. Oren lifted her spear again and held it with steady grip. She looked at him with renewed strength. Then we fight together. My trust is yours. Ryan nodded. His own fear eased. He was not alone anymore. The puddles of spilled water slowly sank into the sand, vanishing as if the desert itself drank them. Yet the bond formed in that chamber remained, stronger than steel. As the stars burned bright above, the human and the alien woman sat side by side, ready for the storm that was sure to come. The desert did not rest. Even as Ryan and Oren repaired the armor, the night air carried whispers of danger. The wind shifted often, and with it came faint vibrations, as if machines were moving far away across the sand. Oren stood at the doorway of the ruined chamber, her spear in hand. The silver plates of her armor now held steady, but the repairs were temporary. She knew it. Ryan knew it. Every step from now on would carry risk. More scouts will come, she said in her calm, low voice. They will find the broken one. Then they will search deeper. Ryan walked to her side, looking out into the starlit desert. The wreck of his shuttle glimmered faintly in the distance, a twisted shadow among dunes. He realized the beacon he had tried to use might now betray them. If the Vayan picked up the weak signal, they would come with greater force. What do they want with you? He asked. Oren's eyes narrowed. Not me alone. They want water. Always water. They do not care if life dies. They only take. This tower hides much water below. They cannot be allowed to drink it. Ryan felt it chill despite the dry air. Then they will not stop until they break this place. She turned to him, her gaze sharp. That is why I stayed. My people trusted me to guard what is left. But alone, my chance was small. With you, perhaps it changes. Ryan took a deep breath. He was only a pilot, not a soldier. Yet every moment with her reminded him that survival here was more than just living day to day. It was about choosing what mattered. What do you want me to do? He asked. Her eyes softened slightly. Stand with me. That is all I ask. Before he could answer, a new sound rolled across the ruins. A low hum, steady and strong, carried by the cold air. Both froze. Oren whispered, not Scout. Bigger. Ryan's heart pounded. He stepped outside with her, keeping low behind broken walls. In the distance, red lights moved across the desert. Shapes followed the lights, tall, sharp machines walking on long legs that sank into the sand. Their eyes glowed with cruel fire. Oren gripped her spear tighter. Hunters. They follow the scouts. They will not stop. Ryan counted quickly. 3 machines, each the size of a small tower, moving slowly but without pause. Their bodies gleamed black, their movements smooth. The ground seemed to tremble under their weight. "We cannot fight that," he whispered. Her voice was steady. "Not in open. But tower has traps. Old defenses, maybe sleeping. If they wake, we may stand." Ryan looked back at the glowing pillar inside the ruins. He remembered how he had forced it to flare with light earlier. If the tower still carried power, maybe they could use it. "You mean the machines here?" he asked. Oren nodded once. "Yes. They were built to guard. If we wake them, they may strike once more." Hope sparked inside Ryan, but it was thin. "And if they don't?" Her face hardened. "Then we fall." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Ryan squared his shoulders. "Show me where." Together they returned to the chamber. Oren led him through a side passage filled with broken cables and collapsed walls. At the end stood a dark console covered in dust. Strange symbols glowed faintly across its surface, like a heartbeat too weak to last. "This," Oren said, touching it with her hand. "It speaks to tower. Long asleep. You woke small part before. Can you wake more?" Ryan studied the panel. The symbols meant nothing to him, but he understood machines. He pulled out his tools and bent over the console. His fingers searched for power lines, for connections still alive. Behind him, Oren stood guard, her spear raised. Every sound outside grew louder. The hum of the hunters, the thud of their legs, the hiss of sand shifting. Ryan worked quickly, twisting wires, pressing circuits, forcing sparks. The console pulsed brighter. A deep hum filled the walls around them. Oren glanced upward. "It stirs." "Not enough," Ryan muttered. He dug deeper, connecting a broken wire from his own beacon to the console. The hum grew stronger, shaking dust from the ceiling. Suddenly, the entire tower vibrated. The cracked pillar in the central hall lit up like fire, lines of light spreading across the walls. Outside, the ruins glowed, awakening from long sleep. Oren's eyes widened. "You woke it?" A sound split the night. The hunters outside paused, their red eyes flashing brighter. They had sensed the awakening. Their steps quickened toward the tower. Ryan rose to his feet, wiping sweat from his brow. "Now what?" Oren's gaze burned with fierce light. "Now we stand." They hurried back to the open hall. The hunters were close now, their long legs carrying them across the dunes with terrible speed. Each step made the ground shake. Then, with a sudden roar, the tower answered. From the broken walls, beams of light shot outward. Hidden weapons long buried in dust came alive. Energy bolts struck the sand, exploding near the hunters. One machine staggered, smoke rising from its side. The other 2 spread apart, firing red streams of energy back toward the tower. The walls shook, stones falling from above. Ryan ducked behind cover, his heart racing. Oren stood tall, her spear glowing as it absorbed light from the tower's awakened heart. She turned to him, her voice steady despite the chaos. "You gave tower breath again. Now I fight with it?" Ryan wanted to argue, to stop her from risking herself, but the look in her eyes silenced him. She was not afraid. She was ready. The first hunter closed the distance, its long arms reaching for the walls. Oren leapt forward, her spear striking with a flash of silver. The weapon pierced the machine's eye, and it collapsed with a heavy crash that shook the sand. Ryan stared in awe. She was faster, stronger than he had imagined. Yet as she pulled her spear free, he saw her stumble. The repaired armor held, but only barely. The second and third hunters advanced. Their red beams cut through the ruins, sending fire across stone. Ryan ducked again, shouting, "We can't hold much longer." Oren braced herself, lifting her spear high. "We hold as long as we must. This is the turning." Her words struck him like fire. He understood. This was no longer just about survival. It was about protecting something larger, something worth more than either of them alone. The hunters roared. The tower roared back. Between them stood a human and an alien, side by side, ready to face the storm. The battle for the desert had truly begun. The night blazed with strange lights. Red beams from the hunters cut through the ruins, while white streaks from the awakened tower answered back. Every strike shook the ground. The desert that had been silent for ages now burned with war. Ryan crouched behind broken stone, heart racing. The air smelled of dust and fire. He peered around the edge and saw Oren standing tall. Her silver spear glowed as if alive, and her armor shimmered under the tower's light. She looked like a figure born of war, but Ryan also saw the tremble in her movements. The repairs he had made could not last much longer. The second hunter closed in. Its long legs crushed stone as it stepped into the ruins. Its red eye glowed bright, searching for a target. Ryan felt small under its shadow, like a bug before a storm. He gripped a broken tool in his hand, though he knew it could not stop such a beast. Oren did not wait. With a shout, she rushed forward. Her spear cut the air, striking the hunter's leg. Sparks burst. The machine staggered but did not fall. It swung an arm down at her. She rolled aside, barely avoiding the crushing strike. Ryan's breath caught. She was fast, but not unbreakable. If she fought alone, she would not last. He looked at the console wires in his hand, the ones he had carried from the chamber. The tower's defenses were awake, but not all of them. Maybe he could do more. He dashed across the hall toward another dark console near the wall. Beams of light flashed past him, close enough to burn the ground at his feet. "Ryan," Oren called, "stay back." But he did not listen. He slid behind the console and began working. Sparks bit at his fingers as he pulled wires and pressed circuits. His heart pounded louder than the battle. He could not fight with a spear, but he could fight with his hands, his mind, and his will. The console came alive, faint lights blinking. A deep groan shook the ruins as more hidden weapons rose from the sand. Twin turrets unfolded, their barrels glowing. With a heavy thrum, they fired beams of white light at the hunter. The machine staggered again, smoke spilling from its chest. Oren leapt and drove her spear into its weak spot. With a burst of sparks, the hunter collapsed into the dust, its long legs folding like broken sticks. Ryan gasped in relief, but there was no time to rest. The third hunter pushed forward, roaring with a deep metallic sound. Its red eye locked on Ryan. The beam fired. The console exploded in front of him, blasting him backward. He hit the ground hard, ears ringing. His chest burned, but he forced himself up. "Ryan, Oren shouted, running toward him. "I'm fine," he coughed, though every breath hurt. He pointed at the last hunter. "Finish it?" Oren hesitated, torn between him and the enemy, but then she turned and charged. The last hunter was faster than the others, moving with cruel precision. Its arm swept low, striking her squarely. She flew across the ruins, crashing into stone. Her spear slipped from her grasp. Ryan's heart froze. He saw her lying still, her armor cracked, her chest rising weakly. For a moment, fear threatened to crush him. If she fell, the last hope fell with her. The hunter stepped closer, raising its arm to strike her again. "No," Ryan whispered. He forced himself to his feet. His legs shook, but he did not stop. He looked around and saw the broken power cells he had taken from his shuttle. He had carried them earlier, hoping to make traps, but never used them. Now he had one chance. He grabbed the nearest cell, sparks still dancing across its surface. With all his strength, he ran toward the hunter. The machine turned, its eye glowing bright. A red beam shot toward him. Heat seared past, burning the sand. He did not stop. At the last moment, he hurled the power cell into the hunter's chest. It struck hard and stuck between the plates. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the world shook. The power cell exploded with blinding light. The hunter roared, its chest tearing apart. Fire burst out, and the great machine collapsed into the dust, broken and silent. Ryan fell to his knees, gasping. His arms trembled, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to crawl toward Oren. She lay among the stones, her armor cracked open. When he reached her, her eyes fluttered open. "You are mad," she whispered weakly. He gave a small laugh, though his throat burned. "Maybe. But it worked." She tried to rise, but her body faltered. Ryan helped her sit, supporting her weight. The tower still glowed, its defenses humming, but the hunters were gone. Only silence and dust remained. For a long moment, neither spoke. They only breathed, side by side, alive in the ruin of battle. At last, Oren said softly, "I did not think a human could do this. You faced machines built to crush armies. You did not run." Ryan shook his head. "I was afraid. But I couldn't leave you. And I couldn't let them win." Her eyes searched his face, and for the first time since he had met her, she smiled. "Then maybe my people were wrong. Maybe humans are not weak." The desert wind swept around them, carrying away smoke and dust. Above, the stars shone clear. Ryan looked at the fallen hunters, their bodies broken in the sand. He looked at Oren, still leaning against him, fragile but alive. "We're not done yet," he said. "More will come." She nodded slowly. "Yes. But we fight again. Together." They sat in silence, the ruins glowing faintly around them. The battle was over, but the war was not. Yet in that moment, strength grew between them, strength not from armor or weapons, but from trust. The desert was no longer empty. It held a promise, born from fire and dust. The first light of the twin suns touched the desert. Gold and pale yellow spread across the dunes, turning the ruins into a place of quiet beauty. The night had passed, leaving only dust, smoke, and faint sparks from broken machines. Ryan stirred on the cold sand, still feeling the ache in his arms and legs. Oren lay beside him, her armor repaired but scratched, her eyes closed as she rested. The battle was over, yet the weight of survival remained heavy. He looked around the ruins. The tower still glowed faintly, its defenses sleeping again. Broken hunters lay scattered in the sand, defeated by a human and an alien woman. The thought filled him with pride, though he did not speak it aloud. Oren's eyes opened slowly, focusing on him. "You awake?" she asked in her soft voice, still heavy from exhaustion. "I am," he said, stretching stiff arms. "How are you?" She lifted a hand, testing the armor. "Better. Repairs hold. My strength returned slowly." Ryan nodded. "The tower helped us. Your trust helped me. And we survived together." She studied him carefully. "Yes. You survived, and you did more than that. You saved me." He smiled faintly. "Then we are even. You saved me before I even knew I needed it." For a moment, silence stretched over them. The wind carried faint sounds from the desert beyond, but nothing threatened them now. Ryan rose carefully and walked to the central hall. The cracked pillar glowed softly. He placed a hand on it. The tower had more hidden power, but it needed time to recharge. If they stayed too long, it could be dangerous. Oren joined him, leaning slightly on her spear for support. "You did well with little. Humans have clever minds. They think fast." Ryan chuckled quietly. "I had to. The desert leaves no time for doubt." She nodded. "And you learned trust. That is more rare than cleverness. Many fall without it." He looked at her face, the pale gray skin, the faint lines that shimmered under the soft light. "You are not so different either," he said. "You risked everything for me." Oren's lips curved slightly. "I risked because I chose. Because we face more together. And because I believe you will not fail again." Ryan felt a warmth in his chest. After all the fear, the dust, and the fire of battle, they had formed something stronger than survival. Outside, the desert was still and quiet. The sun climbed higher, and shadows shrank. Ryan gathered water from the pools left by Oren's armor. It was not much, but it would sustain them until they found more. Oren watched him, her eyes soft but alert. "You need more than water soon. You need shelter, food, and the way back to the stars." "I know," Ryan said. "But first, we survive today. Then tomorrow, we find a way." The ruins were dangerous, but they were also full of hope. Hidden passages and old machines hinted at water beneath the tower. Oren had guarded it for years, and now she could trust him to help. Together, they explored the central hall. Ryan carried tools, patching broken circuits and checking the remaining defenses. Oren moved beside him, her spear ready but her steps careful. Each motion was measured, conserving strength for whatever might come. They discovered a small pool beneath the cracked pillar. Water shimmered faintly, deep and clear. Oren knelt and tested it. Still pure. Enough for days if we ration. Ryan knelt beside her, dipping a hand to drink. The water was cool and life-giving. For the first time since the crash, he felt the full relief of survival. They worked together to clear debris around the pool. Stones, sand, and broken panels moved with combined effort. With every small success, trust and friendship grew. They spoke little, only enough to guide each other. Words were not needed for the bond forming between them. After hours, the work was done. They rested beside the pool, bodies tired but spirits stronger. The twin suns shone high, and the desert felt alive with quiet energy. Oren studied Ryan. Humans survive many worlds. They adapt, they endure. You proved this. Ryan shrugged, smiling faintly. Maybe. But not alone. I had help. Her gaze softened. Then together, we endure more. This place, these ruins, the water, we protect them. Together. He nodded. Yes. Together. The days that followed were careful and slow. They explored the tower further, mapping hidden passages and water sources. Oren taught Ryan how to read the symbols on the walls, to understand the old technology. He learned quickly, amazed at how clever her people had been. At night, they kept watch together. The desert could be silent, but Ryan had learned to expect danger. Oren's presence made him braver. Each star in the sky felt like a reminder that they were alive, and that survival was only the first step. They found small caves under the dunes where water collected. Oren shared stories of her people, their struggles, and their past. Ryan listened, learning not only about the alien world but about the meaning of courage and trust. As time passed, their skills grew. Ryan learned to repair broken armor plates, and Oren learned to trust him in ways she had never trusted any human. Together, they became a team, blending human creativity and alien discipline. One morning, as the twin suns rose together, painting the desert in warm gold, Oren spoke. We have survived the first trial. The hunters will return, but we will be ready. Ryan stood beside her, looking out across the dunes. And we will survive it together. She nodded. Yes. Together. The desert stretched endlessly, but it no longer seemed hostile. With trust, courage, and the bond they had formed, the ruins became more than a place of survival, they became a home. Ryan and Oren sat quietly, watching the suns rise. The past dangers had not disappeared, but the bond they shared had grown stronger than fear. The tower hummed softly around them, a reminder that even in a harsh world, life could endure. And for the first time since the crash, Ryan felt hope not only for survival, but for what could come after. They were no longer two strangers in a desert. They were allies, guardians, and friends. And together, they would face whatever the stars, or the desert, had in store. The desert wind carried warmth and the promise of life. Water shimmered beneath the tower, and the ruins, once silent and empty, now held laughter, preparation, and hope. The world was harsh, but Ryan and Oren had found strength in each other. Together, they were ready for anything. A new dawn had come.